Emancipate yourselves from mental slavery. None but ourselves can free our minds. Have no fear for atomic energy, 'cause none of them can stop the time.
Welcome to Honestly Speaking. I'm your host, Claude Skelton Cline. Delighted that you have taken the time to join us and join this conversation, which we're hoping is a territorial conversation regarding who we are, where we are, and where do we go from here. And we invite you to around your table, around the well, at the bars, at the church, wherever you are, to become a citizen that is fully participating in the destiny, the future of your territory. As always, we encourage all of our viewers, and you can view us right here on channel 51 every Tuesday live at 8 p.m. It replays on Saturday evenings at 7 o'clock p.m., but also on 90.9 on Facebook. And every Friday, it's uploaded to YouTube. You just punch in Honestly Speaking BVI, and then you can see all of the shows that are played, that we have played since the inception of this program. And so we are pleased always to have you join us on Honestly Speaking. We are delighted. We encourage you to be hope, be the change that you envisage, that you envision, that you desire for your future, for your family, for your territory. You be the change. Not just what I call, just don't be hopeful, but you be the hope. And seek understanding. Practice compassion. Those are three mantra things that we say every time that we get together. Be hope, seek understanding, practice compassion. And we believe that will make all of us better citizens and great neighbors. But not to take up much time, we have a giant with us at the table today in the person of Carvin Malone. He is a husband, a father, as a matter of fact, a husband for some 33 years, a father of one. He has served as president of the Virgin Islands Party. He is president of the Lions Club some 4 times over, which I understand is kind of a record. And so a man of the people, a man who has served his community, no doubt, a tactician, a strategist. I mean, he is truly a giant, and it always gives me great joy personally. Every time I have a chance to have a sidebar conversation with him, I'm always dying laughing. But he has a way with words. He has a way of getting across a message that I think that is useful and needful for all of us. And so today we are pleased to have you, sir. Welcome.
Nice to be here. Honestly speaking, in fact, now that we've hit the high note, everything is downhill from here. I'm truly pleased to be invited to the show. It is quite an interactive show.
Yes.
And I have seen a number of your programs, and I'd like to congratulate you for bringing the topics to the forum and and having them addressed in a way that only you could.
Yes, but yes. I accept that, and we're pleased. Listen, I know you serve well. Let's start talking a little bit about, just what helps to inform and make you who you are. I know your dad, and I know of your dad more than I know of your mom, but what is it that makes you the composite of who you are and what you bring to bear?
Okay, great. Well, we just got done celebrating the Malone family reunion that's Eastern Malone, they call it.
Okay.
Call us. And when we count the numbers, 465,
yes,
in terms of the descendants of William and Clarita Malone. And when you look at the grandparents, when you look at your parents, when you look at the contributions that they have made, I had the opportunity to eulogize my dad, and I told the crowd then that I will be the one that have to tell his story, because history will be distorted if we fail to tell the stories of our parents. So when you look at his contributions and how he was part of farming and making, there are many persons who have granted me favors even from a young age, only because my dad helped them along the way. They remembered when they were building that they wanted some credit, and he was able to tell them, well, look, you pay X amount and you can go ahead. They said, well, he did not even know me, but he invited me to start my house, start my program, and so forth. And you know, I take pride in reading a number of books that were written about the history, life, and times of our makers of this society. We'll never know about Bristol Fraser unless Bristol Fraser kids probably tell the story, because we're not seeing it in books. We'll never know about Robinson unless he tell the story. Randolph Malone and all of the people, Obel Penn and all the folks that helped to make this particular society. So I like to go back. I like to research and make sure that I understand from whence we came, from where we came. You are a product of where you were when.
And because short of that, you run the risk of either mismanaging what you have and all that they have built and what was left. If there's a deficit in your history, if you don't know your history, and then of course it says you like it to repeat it. History doesn't repeat itself. We repeat history because we just don't know or take the time to properly honor, salute our foreparents and what they have done. And I guess that helps us to dovetail into, straightforward, as a businessman, as a father, as a husband, as a citizen of this territory, what is your analysis, twofold, as to where you think we are? What's your diagnostic and prognostic perspective as to where we are, both, and it's broad, economically and politically? What's your diagnosis of where we are economically and where we are politically? And then we can talk about some of the prognosis that you want to probably posture tonight. Where are we from where you sit?
Okay, fine. Well, again, what I like to do is to make sure you look at how did I get here?
Okay.
First of all, I had a unique opportunity, probably like some of your brothers did or some of your uncles did. Had a unique opportunity to work with my dad when he had the block plant right here in Rotown. In fact, I learned to drive even before the age of 16 or 18, when you should have been waiting to do this. I worked with a number of persons who helped him, Midjo and Clifford and Clifton and Noel and all of the guys who there. A whole caring society, because they were not just employees, they were family members that helped to make the company to where it is. My dad expanded and we went down to Pocket Pond and 3.75 acres down there, put the plug plant there. Gray was there and lots of mosquitoes and sandflies. So at the end of the day, it was one in which he saw the need to expand his block making business, and it was through the business that he was able to send us to school. All four of us had, and then it had my brothers, Guy and Jackie, and all the others. He helped to make sure that we all stood as a family, and so forth. So when you look in terms of coming back from school in 1981, well, finishing college in 81 and coming back here in 82, I was able to work with the late Hamilton Lafferty Stout not in terms of working in government posts, but in terms of being around the late great Lafferty Stout. And seeing some of the things and some of the ideas that he have, seeing the way that he took a simple idea and was able to mold it and have it happen.
Yeah.
And then by that we were able to see a number of things evolved. And then later down, of course, being able to work with my very good friend Ralph O'Neill, as chairman of the Virgin Islands Party. But in terms of business, when we look at the transition away from the manufacturing part of it, because Puerto Rico could sell us a block, and we couldn't even make it for what they were selling it for.
Yeah.
So the country had to make a decision. Now we're going to protect the block manufacturing business and have the price go to a certain level. When the shoe's on your foot, it always feels heavier.
Yeah.
So it was quite a transition, having to go out of manufacturing and go into purchasing and selling, particularly blocks.
So you were your parent you were manufacturing the blocks.
Oh yeah. We actually manufactured blocks right here in Rotown, and when my mom always remembered the bank note every month, $2,314.78 that she had to carry to the bank, because you talk about accountants and so forth. My mom was the biggest accountant you had, so so she was not just a homemaker only. She was the commander-in-chief.
Wow. And you got to a point, a fork in the road, so to speak, and where a decision had to be made, but I guess a leadership, political decision as to, and that would certainly impact your family business in a major way.
That's good.
And so the decision basically was?
Well, the decision was whether we go out of business or we transition into the bulk sale, bulk purchase of materials from Puerto Rico and other places for resale. So we moved from manufacturing, had to close down the plant, manufacturing, and then we opened the branch in Vargas Bay, and opened the branch in East End and so forth. And so I was there through all of the transitions. And then we came to a point where between ourselves and the Stouts and the Rapstats, we were fighting hard to see who could sell a block for less, or a steel post for less. So we had to make a decision. Do we just spin ourselves to death, or do we transition out? So we actually moved away from the bulk retail business into the development business. So we were able to get some construction works done, and and move from one area to another.
And what you're sharing is important. It's important on several fronts, but key is, oftentimes persons see you today, but they don't know your story. They don't know your history. And sometimes we have all manner of evil to say against each other. But that's because we don't know each other. We just think that they've always been here, and whatever they perceive here to be, by the way, it always needs to seem like it's above everything else. But when you track the history of parents and grandparents who, through blood, sweat, and tears, put their hands to the plow and did not look back, fought for, worked hard, tirelessly for the fruit that we are reaping from today. That's why it's disturbing to me when we go at each other, whether it's a family name that is well known or not, or personally, with pulling each other down or speaking disparagingly of each other. And I think it's so important for us to know the story.
That's right.
And therefore, it gives us a cause for which we know we must fight for today.
That's correct.
Well,
the fact is that my parents impressed on us to return home. We're going to give you whatever you need to be educated. Return home and participate in the development of your country. And my mom especially, she was making sure that we live together as a family, never angry at each other, and if you are, then find a way to do it. And maybe in the oldest of the the group, I was given a specific charge to make sure that you live as a unit. So I'm proud to say that we are still very much close knit as a family, and in fact in ways in which that is enviable to some, but in one in which is required in order for us to move this ball forward.
Yeah.
And if you look at the particular requirements that we have for business here and so forth, I've always contended that while we have trips being taken abroad to invite people to develop your country, the fact is that you have a number of persons here that more incentives, more ways should be gained in terms of how do you give incentives to those who are here.
Right.
Because not because you don't have a Virgin Islands passport mean that you can't be an investor.
Yes.
That should be encouraged.
Right, right. And that's a good point, because it helps to segue, because I see part of government's role is to create the environment that is conducive for business to happen in a seamless way. You know, it's not cumbersome, it's not frustrating. And specifically, for you to have policies, if not even legislation, in place that gives your people first right of refusal, so to speak. Yes. The whole notion that there should be some level playing field for everybody else is a misnomer. And for us to suggest it or to speak, you know, apologetically about it, I think it's dishonest because Viva Islanders, Virgin Islanders should have first right and to participate fully in the development of their territory.
That's good.
And it's not to disinvite, as you suggest, or not to say that no one else is welcome, but it cannot be at the expense of. So what is your take currently as a businessman? What is your take on the current economic environment? Is it conducive for you to do business or for other entrepreneurs to come up? What's the current state of affairs?
Well, there is a global challenge that we all have.
Okay.
In terms of the whole economics. But in addition to it, we must find ways in which legislations, VBA legislations, and a lot of the strain is being taxed or blamed on or being apportioned to the fact that we're this big international company.
Yes.
And to do so, then the big company, there's no differential between a big company, small company, local company, export, foreign company. Yeah. Which should not be.
Should not be.
Because at the end of the day, a multinational coming in here cannot be, you cannot expect a upgoing local business to match that of international. Right. So if they have to go and spend $1,000, $4,000 to incorporate a company, then you have to spend it because there's no differential.
Yes.
There should be.
So you believe that legislatively there should be some segmenting, some clear delineations where one, not only is Virgin Islands company, but even within Virgin Islands companies, meaning persons belonging to the Virgin Islands, it should be proportioned. There's a certain quantum that what constitutes a small business where there are certain policies and legislation. Is that what you're suggesting?
Yeah, because at the end of the day, you have incorporation of companies. You have companies here that are worth multi-million dollars. Yeah. They come here and, of course, they can pay $10,000 to incorporate in a minute. But
to require
yes, I have to go and get an agent. I have to go and get this, and I cannot do it myself anymore because there was a time when you were able to, call someone and say, well, go and incorporate this company for me, and so forth. But now, there are some rules and laws, and I hear it. We want to stay compliant. Yeah, I hear it. I don't fully understand it. The fact is that in America they find ways in which American companies can benefit, and
absolutely,
Trump said he's going to get rid of NAFTA because it's a poor deal for America. He's going to get rid of another thing because he's going to do it. I'm not I'm not getting into American politics, but the fact is that he is looking, or they're looking for ways in which American company cannot be sidelined, cannot be second-classed in America.
And as a matter of fact, as I've stated on this program before and in private, the IMF and the World Bank at the last meeting in April 22nd of this year, they dropped their protectionist pledge.
Yeah.
And a lot of it had to do with Trump coming on the scene and the push back from America that says, no, America first.
Yeah.
Now, whether or not, the policy-wise he goes through on that, the point is, when they met, they dropped that pledge.
Yes.
And what it brought me back to is here we have a situation in a very small jurisdiction where there are 3 telecommunications companies. Mm-hmm. One that belongs to Virgin Islanders, and 2 that's from elsewhere.
Yes.
I mean, to me, it's a prescription for killing off your own. What is your take on that kind of?
Well, the fact is, look, we have become used to a certain level of service, and I am thinking that. We are able to meet the standards that are required. Once you're meeting the standards and so forth, opportunities should be there for you to survive in this, because at the end of the day, a publicly traded company getting money from all over the world can raise capitals much easier than you could here. Yeah. So there are going to be ways in which that this should be doing. You cannot protect and give mediocre service. The service has to be on par, because you and I would not accept it. But once we're coming up to speed, we should be given the opportunity to actually do this. And in the interest of full disclosure, that I'm a member of the investment club, so it's I don't want to pretend anything about it. So
no, and that's, and to be clear, I think that you need not be an apologist or polemicist for that. I think that's
just a matter of full disclosure, because at the end of the day,
proud of.
Yes,
and I do believe that one of the missteps in past administrations, but it's really started from this whole notion of globalization, was to allow for you to have 2-3 companies in such a small jurisdiction. And yes, we are expecting a certain level of service, but the fact of the matter is, comparatively, we pay higher rates with lower deliverables, whether it's telephone or just the share internet services that happens here in this jurisdiction. That it is poor. It is piss poor. And we have the people of telecommunication. What's that group called? TRC. TRC. I just think that government and that particular entity whose responsibility it is to ensure that there's certain kind of deliverables, certain quality of services, and to have consumer protection, which I'm going to come to in a minute. I want you to plant that seed around all of the deliverables that's being offered here. I just think it's lacking. And it makes for one of the reasons why living in the BVI is so expensive. And that has all kind of social implications for the poor, the working poor, and even the so-called middle class. And so I personally, I am not in favor of 2-3 companies being in here. And I like Trump in this spirit, think that there's always a need to revisit some decisions that have been made heretofore. Now that will scare some people, but I think we are at a place in our journey together where some things need, some infrastructure things that has serious economic implications need to be revisited, and says if we're going to have this many people, then there needs to be certain assurances of the quality of service at the best price, where the people are being protected. But that's just my 2 cents on honesty speaking.
Well, you're not afraid to be honest about you.
Let's pivot a little bit to the political implications, because a lot of this, we are in a politically charged environment.
Yes.
And so I want to shoot you some questions as to, and you give me feedback as you see it fit. What's your analysis, your critique of the current leadership, political leadership in the jurisdiction?
Well, That's a real charged question, isn't it?
Yes.
No.
Yeah.
Well, the fact is this. I always see my glass as half full, not as half empty.
Okay.
We as a people have come far. We have come from a particular distance. And I always like to go back to history again.
Sure.
We have 1950, the reinstatement of the Constitution, 1967, ministerial government system, 1967 ministerial government, 1977 finance department. We negotiated a lot of things between 50 and 75, labor code, and the non-belongers that holding license, U.S. tender as your particular government. A lot of seismic stuff happened way early, and so forth. And we've evolved during the years. We must have a sense of history as to where we came from, as we mentioned earlier. There are challenges economically, and the challenging times require stern leadership, decisive leadership. I'm not here to put a grade on anything in terms of leadership and so forth. All I'm saying is that the time has come for us as Virgin Islanders, those who qualify to hold office, those who are able to, those who are prepared to come forward.
Yeah.
I spoke about the proverbial banana tree. People are hiding behind it because they want to protect something. They want to protect their jobs, they want to protect a contract, they want to protect a scholarship that they might get, a contract they might get, and so forth. And at the end of the day, we turn back around and then want to blame Claude. He's speaking too much. They want to blame Carvin. He has too many opinions. They want to blame somebody else for it. We have an opportunity to be a part of. We have an opportunity and a requirement to hold leadership accountable. If you're not going to be prepared to hold leadership accountable, then it is jungle rules. Strong survive. Today for you, tomorrow for me. You only eat what you kill. We can't continue down those paths and so forth. So I'm not going to blame any one person, because at the end of the day, they stepped up, they stepped to the plate. If they're not being held accountable by the voters, by the people of the country, then the people have to understand that they too have a particular responsibility for leadership. It's not only the 13 persons that got elected.
Yes.
If there are consequences, if there are circumstances that require praise, we praise. If there are consequences, if there are circumstances that require some kind of correction, we should have them corrected. We cannot let it go and believe that the other person coming is going to just correct themselves.
Right. And what might be some of those corrective measures? For example, what is your take on the government's handling of the swearing in of the new governor?
Well, at the end of the day, I look at the major premise. The executive authority of the Virgin Islands is vested in the Queen through the governor, or the governor through the Queen, yes? Whether the governor is sworn in an outhouse, on a ship, in the House of Assembly, or in the courtroom, when that document is signed, they have executive authority. So I don't understand the big deal as to whether or not it should be sworn in the House of Assembly, especially if it's tradition so to do. And even if it was fundamentally egregious in terms of an act, I don't see it as an indictable offense in terms of where it is. So I would not have held a particular position that if you're not invited to the House, then you can't come to the House. You cannot hold a House of Assembly meeting unless the particular mace is there, signifying, because the legislature is made up of the Queen and the House of Assembly. Yes, the Speaker is the head of the House of Assembly, but the legislature is made up of the Queen and the House of Assembly. Now, the House of Assembly, the hall, you can split here as to exactly, well, who should be in there. I go from time to time in the particular gallery, and I I view some of the sittings of the House Assembly. I'm not sure if I need to be invited in order to come in.
Yeah.
But I go in and so forth because I think it's a public forum.
So in terms of the handling it, I understand maybe precedent and maybe even constitutionally what is and is not. But in terms of the handling of it, do you think it was mishandled, and or what do you think might be some of the implications, if any, of this kind of you starting off this way with this new governor?
Well, one of the things, as I mentioned to you before, I'm not here to pass judgment on the handling. All I'm saying is what I see in terms of how it is, because I am guessing that some thought went into how they handled it. I would not have done it that way, so I wouldn't grade again how it was handled. I would not have done it that way. I think that when you look at the major premise, the fact is that once the document is signed, the executive authority is is there. I don't think it's such a good stage for relationship, because at the end of the day, if it was one in which you say, well, I don't think you should be sworn in here, and it was taken at face value, fine. But I've seen a number of letters back and forth trying to decipher. We have sent it to the UK and we have had legal opinions. I've done my legal research and this is what I've decided. If it comes to that and so forth, who cares where it's signed?
Yeah. What is your view on constitutional advancement?
I have strong views.
Okay. What might someone know?
I have strong views. I have mentioned publicly before that the pathway to constitutional advancement should not be hindered, should not be blocked by the actions of leaders, because it is a people's decision. The residents, voters, the people of the Virgin Islands must decide what is the next step. A decision was made, a march was done in '49, and it was instituted in 1950. In 1954, there was a review. In 1967, I think it was. There was a series of reviews since 1950.
Okay.
All of them, as I mentioned before, leading from the reinstatement, going into the ministerial, going into a number of other things. The latest being, of course, the 2007 review that you have. Transparency, accountability, good governance. It is not for a pleasing or great mark by the UK. It should be done so that the residents and voters and people of the Virgin Islands feel that we have reached to a stage where we want to be accountable to the people. We want to be transparent in all of our particular actions. And we want to make sure that we're going to be fair and square down the line, matters of policies, not just for the few, but for the...
So you say that constitutional advancement should not be blocked by the leaders?
That's correct.
Is it your view that current leadership is blocking our ability for constitutional advancement?
My feeling is that if you put it to the vote today, as to whether or not what advancement we should have, and the two things that are on the table, stay as you are or go, there are different forms that are on the table. One of them is actually independence. You would not get a majority of people saying that we should go independent.
And you would not.
The reason why you're not going to get a majority of people saying is that they don't feel that leadership, I'm not saying current, I'm not saying just current, I'm not saying what the indictment is. I'm saying that the residents don't feel that you have the proper level of transparency. They don't feel you have the proper level of accountability, and the governance is wanting. So at the end of the day, the indictment always is in the seat holder. But we've had a number of advancements done in other years. easier advancements and so forth. And the invitation is out there. The British have always said, if you want to take the next step, well, take it to the people and let's go.
So are you saying now, in this current environment, that there is a breach of trust or a loss of confidence in current leadership to even have a meaningful conversation about constitutional advancement?
I'm saying that if you put it to the vote, I don't believe you're going to get the majority.
And that's because?
That's because the people of the Virgin Islands, in my view, don't feel you have the correct level. You haven't reached there. Now, you haven't reached there over the years. Whether it is just in the present government or not, it's not for me to go and say, well, it's only because of who is in.
So are you saying that with both, because for the last 20 years, you know, you've really gone between two parties, the National Democratic Party and the Vernon Party, and you're saying, am I hearing you to say that the cumulative effect of what we have seen transpired have left the people not believing in its leaders over the years so that they can now, in fact, have a meaningful discussion? And if it were to go to a vote, that you do not believe that the people will vote in the affirmative for any type of independence because there's been a lack of transparency and the lack of accountability, which equals that there's been no good governance. Is that what you're saying?
I'm saying to you that throughout the region, we have...
When you say the region, what do you mean?
I'm meaning Jamaica. I am meaning Barbados. Wait a second. I'm going somewhere with this.
Okay.
Okay, good. The final court of justice has been debated for years as to whether or not they want to move it from the Privy Council to the CCJ, I think it is. And they cannot get it agreed that the Caribbean Courts of Justice should be the final court, because they somehow feel that there is a pivoting away from transparency. Well, I don't know all the reasons. Okay, fine. The Queen is still part of the Jamaica legislature. Still part of Barbados, still part of a number of the semi-independent particular places. And if you take it to the vote today, they can't get it done because they too are having a lack of whether or not, when it comes down to it, they're going to need somebody else to help this. Leaders have to reach to the stage where accountability and transparency, you can call it the two-party particular system because you're dealing with individuals also. And I'm saying that the people of the Virgin Islands, I will always pivot back to the fact that the people of the Virgin Islands have to hold leaders responsible in order for even them to go to the next step.
Today,
yes.
As a matter of fact, I think it was last October that the Premier announced that we're coming into the 10th year for an opportunity for constitutional review.
Yes.
And that a committee and chair would be set, which I think to date, there's been neither a committee, much less a chair, or a chair, much less a committee. So here we are, not taking advantage and opportunity to move the ball down the field constitutionally.
Yes.
Because, well, we don't have the mechanism in place to do it. And two, coupled with the fact you're saying, even if it was to be done, that the people today, in your view, doesn't have the confidence to vote for any such thing in the affirmative, and let's just say independence specifically.
Yes.
But there's some other categories in which we can move the ball.
Yes.
So maybe let's talk about those.
Okay, good.
So let's say, because what I think I hear you saying that independence is off the table because you believe there's been a breach of trust, public trust, and a lack of confidence cumulatively over the years from whatever government have sat, where there's been question around accountability and transparency. And that's what I hear you say, okay? What might be then some of the specific items that should a committee be formed that you think that needs to be addressed, that would move the ball down the field in terms of self-determination over and against independence? What might be some of those things?
Well, I have a specific issue, and we spoke about this privately, and we're going to speak about it publicly.
Sure.
The fact is, I have an issue with the fact that some of the key positions that we made sure were held by Virgin Islanders have now gone out of our grasp. When this country sent, because I think that a lot of money has been spent to educate our people, and a lot of opportunities were given to our people to come. Even back then, they didn't have the experience. Went away, they got educated, they come back, they were placed in positions. Public Works, held by Bennett Smith. Water and Sewage, held by Penn. Electricity, held by Skelton. The particular hospital administration, held by Winifred and others. The prison, held by Ashford. The particular police department, held by Vernon and other nationals. Financial secretary, held by Robert and others. Auditor General, held by all nationals, and it was a specific move to have it done, not because these persons had 20 years experience and 15 years experience, but because we wanted to make sure that if our people are 85% ready for the post, and they need 15% help, you get them the 15% help, because the other persons are coming in and doing the on-the-job training anyway.
Yes.
Not because they have this world of experience. But the fact is that we have gone away from that to where, 7 critical posts. And I'm not going to sit here and blame the appointer, the one who made the appointment only. I'm blaming again. I'm putting the onus on us. We have to step forward to it. Why don't we have a DPP or an Attorney General? We have a lot of capable people. I don't want to call names, but we have a lot of learned folks who could fit these roles. It might be the level of service required for the country that you need to have, and you need to probably have a 4-year. We can probably do it for 4 years and 8 years. Dan said she did it for 4 years or 8 years, or whatever it was. Whether or not you believe she did a good job, that is neither here nor there. The fact is that she stepped into the particular task. We're the people to serve. These people need to step forward. And if they're stepping forward and not given the opportunity, then they need to shout out so that we can know that I've offered myself and I'm being rejected every step of the road. We have an opportunity, we have a requirement to make sure that our people, they don't just get the post because they have the birth certificate that you can go and copy from down the street. But the fact is that they have gone, they're ready themselves. And yes, they may well need a 15% training, but train them.
So what has happened, Carvin? What has happened? If you have 7 key posts that used to belong to us, and 5 of those 7 no longer, and 2 are in question, what has happened? Why is that? Why is it so?
Well, how did we get?
How did we get here?
From there.
Yeah.
Well, I don't have the answer to that. But what I'm saying is that we don't need to be here.
Okay.
We need to go to the particular post where we can then do it, and then we have to be accountable for our very own demise and our actions and everything. We have to make sure that people. I've served as president of the Virgin Islands Party, for instance, for 17 years, and I've been called every name that is imaginable. Just for service to my country. And to the point where folks are meeting me and they're saying, well, who are you guys bringing to the table? And my answer has always been that it is a responsibility of each of the districts to find the people who are able, capable, ready, and willing to serve, to bring them forward.
Any of these key posts, DPP, the AG, Superintendent of Prison, Commissioner of Police, Auditor General, have any of these posts changed hands under the Virgin Party tenure to British nationals or anyone else?
Well, like, I don't have the actual timeline in my particular case, because I know Ashford retired. Back then, you had Mr. Forbes acting in a particular post. I know that Mr. Fraser retired, but the timelines for this, I'm not sure. But whether it was then or whether it was now, the fact is that you have these, and and the timelines are there. You can actually check them out and so forth, because I don't want to give dates and times. But I know where we are, and I know where we need to be. We have to get there fast.
Do you have confidence in the present government?
It's not a matter of me to say confidence, yes or no, and so forth, right?
As Carvin Malone.
Well, as Carvin Malone, it is not for me to say whether I have confidence, yes or no. I have my personal views as it relates to moving it forward. I have the premier of the country who is a cousin of mine.
Yeah.
Okay? I have Honorable Marlin, cousin of mine. Dr. Pickering is also a cousin of mine, and so forth. So at the end of the day,
so does blood trumps reason?
Of course not. The whole thing is that I have my personal.
But you took time to mention that they were cousins.
Well, only because I have spoken to each of them, and I've said that with the level of investments that families have here in the Virgin Islands, we need to run the government effectively and efficiently. We have to be responsible to the people for the particular actions. We cannot have some of the things that are happening happen and not have consequences to them, because some of these things are political and some of these things are constitutional. The items that are constitutional are the ones that are going to get us in some particular issues. So the fact is that is the country running the way it should be? Of course not. But the fact is that we have to find ways of which we can help to build it to what it needs to be.
Yeah. Are you offering your service for political service, public service in the political arena? Are you considering offering your service at a different level, as opposed to the fact that you've served for 17 years as chair or as president of the VIP? Are you offering or contemplating offering your service in a different capacity politically?
Honestly speaking, I'm not going to make that declaration here on this show.
That's fine.
Yes.
Next question. What you are a VIP?
Yes.
And the current chair is the Honorable Andrew Foy,
yes.
Member of the First District and former Minister of Education and Culture. What would you say is his strengths, and why should he be the next premier?
Well, when you look, I've always contended, right, that a person's record of service is one of the key ingredients to leadership. He makes me tired just hearing his schedule on a Saturday and Sunday, in terms of music at the church and at this function and at that function and the other function and so forth. And I think that when it comes to making decisions, he is quite keen and he is quite on the ball when it comes to making key decisions. He looks in terms of the big picture. There are a lot of people that question me about whether or not he can be trusted. I can trust him. I think that his family can trust him. I think the country can trust him. And it is the citizens of the country that have to hold leadership accountable. But when it comes to the role that he's played in helping to make education move forward, the records are there and they could be examined. I believe he's done a good job. When in terms of his record in the first district, there's a reason why people have put him there for 4 years and for the 5th particular term, and even in bigger numbers. And even when the odds were even against him, at a particular time. I think that when you look in terms of how he relates to people from the 9th district to the 1st district, and so he's not closed-minded in terms of just looking at a particular district either. He is broad-based in terms of understanding what is required in Anegada, in Virgin Gorda, in Jocelyn Dyke, and all of the other particular constituencies and so forth. When you see people come up to him, they come up to him and they say, well, look, we want to represent you. And we want a leader who also is not afraid to address the issue. People are saying that because he is highlighting some of the particular constitutional breaches, that he is basically working hand in glove with the particular governor. Now, these things that are being done, some of them, are the very things that is going to make sure that we never get back the 7 posts that we want to get back to. And if he highlights some of the issues, then he is then looked at as the bad guy in this. How could it be? There's a job and there's a constitutional post to hold in doing your job and doing it effectively. And if all branches, whether it is the governor, whether it is the cabinet, whether it's the House of Assembly, whether it's the entire legislature, the people of the Virgin Islands, the particular civil servants, each of them have their roles to play, and this is what will do it. But the leader, when you come and you need to make a decision, you must have the ability to do this and have it fearless, and if you invite people to share in the decision-making process, then it's our decision as opposed to just a singular person.
So his overall life of service, his ability to make decisions, to be decisive, key decision, his open-mindedness that is beyond the district, that is more territorial. You mentioned the issue of trust and or credibility, that is a question mark, but you trust him and his family does. And those are the reasons you give as to why he, I suspect, is the chairman and why he could be and make a good premier. Did I hear you correctly? Well,
yes, and you have a picture for where the Virgin Islands need to be in the next 10 years, 15 years, 20 years.
In the context of that, and on the matter particularly of what you said, trust and credibility, when in our earlier conversation you alluded to not just an illusion, or to the fact that there is a question of trust throughout the territory, that there are breach of relationships in terms of political leadership to the body politic. Then does that not become even a more heightened or sensitive area, and how you address that?
Well, you're a man of the cloth, and you know that some of the best works were done by people who others may have written off,
to be sure,
and so forth. Yes, sure. So at the end of the day, is that being there, having some of the issues being brought forward and highlighted, because I've always warned him about, well, not cautioned him, that you're not going to highlight all of these issues and think that you can go and then violate them. Because if you're going to awake the giants in the minds of the people, then they're going to be up and sleepless, and going to make sure that it happens and so forth. So at the end of the day, those who are without sin will be invited to cast the first set of stones. The fact is that at the end of the day, his record of assisting others, his record of looking to move the ball forward.
What do you make of this relationship now between him and the former chair? Honorable Andrew Foy and Honorable Fraser, that has spilled into the public, where there is this division, really, that exists. What do you make of that?
Well,
and is there an opportunity to reconcile that?
Well, people make probably more of it than is needed, and so forth.
Well, he said he'd be looking for 12 candidates. So that's a mouthful.
I've had the opportunity to work with my friend Ralph Tilford O'Neill. I've had the opportunity to work with, not as close as, but work around Hamilton Lafferty Stout. And 1972, I was a kid at the time, but when my dad helped form the Virgin Islands Party, I could now understand why all the flurry of people coming in, and well, we were marooned in our rooms, and I could only hear the conversations on the outside.
Sure.
But all of this happened. Are there relationships that go sour at any time? You're a marriage counselor. You know that relationships, even when 25 years of marriage, these things happen. But the fact is that one has to be adult and brave about it and say, well, what it is that you will and will not accept. And if you have reached to an impasse, then for the sake of the country, then it's best to just, have it done. I am convinced that a whole lot has been done to mend the relationships, but I'm not sure exactly where all it is. I am sure that at the end of the day, there are activities that have been done to help mend it, but if it cannot be mended,
so it'd be. Dr. Carl Dawson, in the last election, 2015, was your highest territorial vote getter, I think at about 3,500 and a few votes beyond that. He has now moved on to be president of the Community College of Anguilla. And I am sure that you probably were expecting for him to certainly be on a ticket that I suspect could very well be. But what does that do to, in terms of your search and your appeal earlier for persons who you're calling upon to step up and offer their service?
Well, the fact is that Anguilla is a stone throw away. He has a particular contract which there are terms and conditions in there. I admire him in terms of the stance, because even when he was president of the college, he took time and he wanted to help to serve his country, and did not stay behind that proverbial banana tree, and but came out in the forefront, maybe to the point of where the other people feared. Yeah. Because remember that if you watch any of the old stories, you made sure you made an example of him, maybe, so that the others don't even try it.
You think he was made an example of?
I mentioned it myself, so I jumped into that. Not actually particularly, because maybe he wanted to move on too. My particular feeling is that he is a president of a college. It is not the HLSCC. It is the Anguilla Community College. You will have to fix that yourself.
Have you ever been made to be collateral damage in the political fights?
Well, I'm always amazed with people who would come to me and say, well, look, I need you to fight for me, but don't let anyone know that I'm hurting, I'm crying, because people are made these days. I am not saying that it is for the first time, because everyone used this first time ever business as if it is the first time that anything ever happened. People are always confused in this whole thing for the first time ever. When you are president of the Virgin Islands Party, I often tell people that this is a contact sport. Yeah. You'll be tagged. Yeah. It's a big boy sport. You'll be hit. Yeah. So I've had a few hits.
You've taken some hits. In the 2015 election, were you ready for that election?
No.
You were not. Yeah. So you were not surprised when you lost?
No.
No. But you do plan to come back and win again?
The Virgin Islands Party will be the next government whenever it's held.
Okay. You got 20 seconds. Any closing words you want to look into that camera and say to the people?
Well, the fact is that thanks for the opportunity to come and honestly speak with you and so forth. We have a country in the Virgin Islands here that we are proud of. We have a country that is going through some challenges. I am going to look at this glass as half full and try to get it to the top in it. It will take all of us. Everyone has to be involved. You cannot just look in terms of the 12, elect 13 people and then lead them to themselves. You have to be involved as a voter, as a particular citizen, as a resident, as a person who care about the particular country. You have to be, you have to make sure that you are in this for the long run. We owe it to our forefathers. We owe it to the people who have helped to get us here. I'd like to, say a big shout out to Honorable Ralph O'Neill again, and so forth, and to all those persons who have helped to mold me, because at the end of the day, it is a sum total of my community.
Yes.
Yes.
Well, certainly we have been pleased to have Mr. Carvin Malone to come and to share, and you know, we were just beginning to tip the iceberg, but the hour is spent. We're almost at the time of the clock, but nonetheless, we do want to invite him for what we will be a part two, because we do believe we need to have some meaningful conversations in which we think and talk through honestly, you know, who we are, where we are, and where do we go from here. So we're pleased to have had him. You have been joining and watching Honestly Speaking, and thank you so much, and continue the conversation even as we go off the air. Any ideas, any topics, any personal suggestions, we're open, we're welcome to have you at this table. And remember, be hope, seek understanding, and practice compassion. Thank you for watching, and see you next time.
How long shall they kill our prophets while we stand aside and look? Some say it's just a part of it. We've got to fulfill the book.